In this video, we're going to give you details about how to observe symptoms related to nose and smell. So let's first talk about the thing that happens with almost all kids with PANS and PANDAS is the sensitivity to smell. So with this, again, most kids get it. So whenever we're talking in homeopathy about something that most kids get, it's less useful as a symptom to choose a remedy. That being said, if they're sensitive to everything in their surroundings, it's a little bit more useful than going through each one. But what can you share about observing that hypersensitivity to smell?
I think the most important part about it is the other thing that happens due to it, right? So is it that they are gagging constantly after they smell something, or is it that it causes a headache right away? Or does it make them really, really sick when they smell something, or they have to, completely disengage, and they're, whatever they're doing when they're disengaging from having to smell things. And so I feel like for me, that's when it comes in, and it's actually really useful.
Right. We also wanted to talk really briefly about imaginary odors, which can come sort of connected to that hypersensitivity to smell. So let's touch a little bit on imaginary odors, and then we'll talk about conditions related to the nose.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting symptom, and I've actually heard it a good handful of times now, so it's worth touching on. But if you smell smoke or embers or something foul and it's not actually foul, or smelling something sweet, it's not actually sweet. So occasionally people will mention it always smells like a burning candle when there's no burning candle.
We also need to talk about loss of smell, right? Especially as we are seeing more and more PANS cases triggered by COVID. We can also address that loss of taste. We're still figuring out how characteristic that's going to be as more and more people are getting onset from COVID with PANS. So we're still learning exactly how characteristic it is. It is always useful in mentioning if there is a loss of taste or a change in not taste, smell, but taste as well. If there's a change in smell. So if something that isn't sweet smells sweet, that could be useful to know, just as much as any imaginary odors or hypersensitivity. So loss of smell or loss of typical normal smell can also be useful. And so let's talk about, sorry, go ahead. Just the conditions related to the nose. So figured you were going ahead to jump in. So we can talk about the discharges, right? So how would you like to hear people describe discharges?
Yeah, so I like to know all the details of the discharges. I want to know the color. I want to know how sticky it is. I want to know what it smells like. If it smells bad, if it's super, super sticky, or it's really watery, or it sounds like they're all clogged up, but nothing's coming out, or they can't blow their nose, or they can't, get the mucus down their throat and spit it out. So I like the gory details of the nasal discharges, and that includes blood, chunks of blood, scabby cutout lesions, we call them, sore spots in the nose, right? Sore spots like at the root of the nose or when you touch the nose. Stuff, skin conditions, again, we'll go into that, but skin stuff around the nose and impetigo, things like that can be really useful.
Right. And as Dr. Petersons mentioned, bloody noses are useful if they're regular and they happen frequently. We want to know, like, what does the blood look like? Is it bright red blood? Is it dark blood? Is it really thin? Is it more clotted? That type of thing is really useful. And as always, modalities. So do you get a bloody nose when it's hot? Do you get a bloody nose when it's windy? Do you get a bloody nose when it's cold? Bloody noses at night, bloody noses while sleeping, that type of thing, as well as what makes it better, other than, just time. But the amount of time can give us information too, like how long does the bloody nose happen to last? And then finally, any symptoms that you can see associated with the nose and like movements that the nose might have, even if it's not particularly something that you think is directly related to nose, but if you notice that there's air hunger and that they're having a hard time breathing and that their nose flares when they're doing it, or if it flares when they're angry, that type of information about observations with the nose can also be helpful.
And if kiddos are super congested positional modalities for when they're better, and indoors versus outdoors, cold air versus warm air, very relevant in congested kiddos.
Absolutely. All right, in our next video, we'll talk to you about mouth and taste.